Hello, and welcome to the sixth installment of our stream series about Mr. David Lynch's final cinematic work, which is called Twin Peaks: The Return, or Twin Peaks Season 3, as some people like to call it. Oh, I'm okay. I see. Sorry, I'm having these weird technical problems. Yeah, there we go. Yes, so and I am very happy to announce that I am joined once again by both of my friends, Mr. Sandbatch and Mr. Prudentialist. Hello, gentlemen.
Happy to be back.
This is the first time I've been on since I've gone on one of my walkabouts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a fun story. I have to sort of recount that a little bit. So the way my Los Angeles art got kicked off was I watched Mulholland Drive with Dee and Red Hawk and Charlemagne a couple of months ago, and literally found myself attempting to lick the screen during our viewing of it because it was so astonishingly beautiful, and the craving hit me the next morning. I was like, I should go to Los Angeles. And it took me a while. I went to a couple other places first, but finally everything, the Venus transited into Scorpio and everything worked out properly for me. And I got to go out there, and I'll tell you what this is like, just because I have to bring this up. The first thing I did, literally got touchdown LAX, 10 o'clock. I go rent my car. I have to go into Hollywood to rent my car. As soon as I turned out of the parking lot, I see the Hollywood Hills looming in front of me, and I went, "Oh man, you know what I'm doing?" And I drove straight the fuck up to the probably very nearly the exact spot where the car accident was filmed on Mulholland Drive, and took pictures. So I got pictures of it, and then I did a bunch of David Lynch themed stuff. I was sending Dee pictures from what Big Boy Diner,
The Bob's Big Boy.
Yeah, it was great.
Amazing. Yes, I did enjoy all of that, and it's certainly worth it. And Mulholland Drive, of course, I think sort of weirdly runs through a lot of the Lynch lore, and also he lived on Mulholland Drive, so it's all of a piece. But of course, we are not in Los Angeles. We're back in Twin Peaks, Washington. How are you doing this week, Prude?
I'm good. It's funny that Sandy had mentioned Mulholland Drive because I watched yesterday for the first time the film Death Becomes Her. And as campy and as delightful as that film is, of course, one of the things that is mentioned is the plot to kill Helen Mirren's character. And it's like, well, what if we just get her drunk or make her look like she's a drunk driver and push her car off Mulholland Drive? And, no one will be the wiser by the time they do the autopsy because all of the, sedative and tranquilizer will have been, completely absorbed by the alcohol. Which it was a delightful film. I quite enjoyed it for its campiness to see Bruce Willis in a comedy, but that's all I really have to add.
It's an excellent movie. It's got Meryl Streep, Goldie Hawn, Bruce Willis. I think Isabella Rossellini's in it too.
Yeah, she is, and she looks great in that film.
Yeah, it's been a very long time since I've seen it, but interesting connotations, connections. And of course, speaking of interesting connotations and connections, if you would like to connect with Mr. Dee, then you can buy me a coffee. And you can do that by visiting buymeacoffee.com/John Dee, IOHNDEE. Very simply, and you can buy a coffee or three. This is in lieu of super chats. I am not yet monetized. That will be happening at some point in the future when I am eligible for it and when everything goes through. But in the meantime, if you'd like to support these efforts, support the channel, support various D activities, then yes, visit buymeacoffee.com/John Dee with an I, and you'll be glad you did. Okay, with that out of the way, we are going to dip back into the world of Twin Peaks: The Return. As I said, I mean, we are sort of keeping parity. Our episode numbers are the same as the episode numbers of the series, and so we're at part 6, and we are talking about episode 6, which has the informal title "Don't Die." Although again, officially all the episodes are just called Part 1 through 18. So if we remember when we last visited the world of Twin Peaks: The Return, we met some new characters. We met, of course, Mr. C in prison. We had some explication of Dr. Amp, and we met a strange character called Lorraine who lives in Buenos Aires, apparently. Or no, she doesn't live there. She's contacting Buenos Aires with a strange device. And then we left our friend Dougie Jones, aka the Good Dale. We left him standing outside of his place of work, which is called Lucky 7 Insurance, in the plaza, and he is staring at a statue who is pointing a revolver off into the distance, and he's looking at it with sort of wonder and perplexity. And of course, this episode opens with Dougie still stood there. Of course, it's nighttime, and he's still looking at the statue. And security sort of notices this and tries to help him to go home, which he does. He's carrying with him a very large bundle of files. So, and of course, again, brought home like a lost dog to poor, long-suffering Janie E. So, yeah. Do we have any sort of initial thoughts about any of this before we kind of move on?
Naomi Watts is great.
She's the most, well, I don't know, actually. She's the second most beautiful woman in the history of the world, is what I think.
Well,
who's number one, Sandy?
I'm not going to say on the air.
Okay.
I thought it was Laura Dern. Yeah. So yeah. Well, of course, we Naomi Watts is quite fetching. I mean, I've talked about how I am very interested in the character of Janie E. and her relationship with Dougie Jones and their child, Sonny Jim. And also, of course, since Sandy brought up Mulholland Drive, that was really her big break. You know, she had been working in Hollywood for 10 years without any really huge success, and it was, that her kind of landing the starring roles in that film that kind of pushed her career. So it's good to, in fact, of course, this Twin Peaks Return, we get to see a lot of old David Lynch favorites, as we will learn later this episode.
There's something she says when the security officer and the cop bring him home, that this is on one of his better days, or when he has episodes. So it leaves me wondering what kind of life Dougie was living prior to Cooper inhabiting him, and the kind of shit that Naomi's characters had to put up with.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly. I would say that he certainly seems a bit less talkative, because when we do see the quote real Dougie briefly before he is broken down for scrap. But yeah, this is certainly an interesting incarnation of what was probably quite a troubling existence with her husband. So Dougie goes in, of course, as all good women do in David Lynch films and beyond. Makes him a sandwich, and sort of feeds him, and he's again perplexedly rooting in his bag of crisps. And of course, Janie seems particularly sort of angry, and even more so than the fact that he got lost again. And we come. Well, he actually goes up to say goodnight to Sonny Jim. I think that this scene is very interesting because there's. I mean, it's so. Of course, I've spoken about my theory that the Dougie and Janie E. and Sonny Jim bit is like a weird existential sitcom in the middle of the show, and that of course when we're in this world, when we switch to the frame, to the Dougie Jones frame, that we're kind of in a different world line from perhaps the things that are happening back in Twin Peaks. There just seems to be a distinctively different tone, and I think that it's David Lynch partially doing an homage to his sort of golden. I know we're meant to think that 2025 is the golden age of America, but for David Lynch, it was certainly the 1950s, and particularly this sort of idea of the 1950s from a man who was a child during that period, And so, I mean, even though, of course, the Dougie Jones show it takes place in the contemporary world, I mean, there is something weirdly, again, sort of television 1950s about it. I mean, the way Janie speaks, the way she she relates to him and interacts with him. Yes, I mean, she gets indignant and she gets angry at him and scolds him and whatever, but it's not in the way a quote modern woman of current year, like it's sort of devoid of the kind of crudeness and the kind of vituperativeness that you would probably expect if this were kind of happening in a realistic way. Like she's still very much like the 50s housewife.
Well, she is, and that's there. But I would like to point out that if you want to go see Trip 50s housewife trad porn or whatever, you can find that there's a lot of places you can find that. And the thing he does that makes it the thing that's being done here that makes it very effective is that they do in fact have contemporary stresses, strains, so on and so forth. He does a very good job of like sort of situating what is like sort of considered, what he's like sort of imagining as a timeless morality in a particular contemporary setting. So yeah, I mean, it's there. And I do agree entirely about, if you recall my topology screed, my topos theory screed, several editions of this show ago. I agree entirely with the idea that this constitutes a sort of bounded temporality. It's one of the braids that's being woven into this sort of larger text. And they are, especially in the first half of the series, they are incredibly isolated from one another, and like the sort of the distinctions of the boundaries between them start to break down as the series progresses. But at this point, they're still relatively isolated from one another.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. One which I sort of failed to make is that even though, as I said, maybe the reactions of the kind of characters within this world are slightly mannered in a way that sort of suggests that period. But yes, they are also dealing with things that would not come up, like assassins and infidelity and prostitutes and sort of nefarious gambling operations and sort of weird sort of cosmic horror from other dimensions trying to kill them, and sort of the great evil of Mr. C. So yeah, I mean, in a way, of course, it's something that I think you see in a lot of David Lynch's work. I mean, particularly Blue Velvet, I'm always sort of thinking back to that, because I think that was sort of one of the kind of overarching themes of that, which is that the world of Blue Velvet, even though it was clearly 1987, but it was also like a 1987 in a very indistinct kind of temporality, and it was about, of course, the terrible sort of pornographic horror of Frank Booth and that whole seedy underworld that just sort of lurked within this kind of idyllic, Jeffrey Beaumont and Laura Dern, Kyle MacLachlan and Laura Dern, being almost sort of 1950s teenagers, and facing, of course, a darkness that you didn't see, that was barely under the surface. You got glimpses of it. I mean, there was certainly, we think of, we're going about television, but I mean, this was also the era of kind of B movies and C movies, and that this is where you started to have the emergence of this kind of or reemergence of this sort of this kind of slight reflection of kind of the darker themes that existed prior to the Hays Code. Recall that film noir, before it was kind of clamped down upon, sort of went along the edge of some very dark things. Hence, again, the appearance of the Hays Code. So it really was in the 1950s where I think it started to kind of bubble up again in different manifestations. Generally, more in the kind of giant spider and swamp creature kind of thing. If you're talking about the bee pictures, but the thing that is curious to me about this scene particularly, we see Sonny Jim here, sort of reading, but is the kind of mise en scène of Sonny Jim's room, because again, it's not quite the room of a boy his age in quote current year. I mean, it's very much again those curtains are distinctly 1950s. So is that kind of wallpaper strip. You see the toys over there. Of course, having a good eye noticing that one of the toys is the cowboy pointing his revolver that Dougie seems so fascinated about in statue form. But again, it's this sort of this is a room from the past in a way. But it's also, of course, it's very distinctly in a way that I don't think you get today with children this age. It's very distinctly coded towards all of the very strong American tropes of a boy, of a masculine child during that period. He's got the world map, he's got the cowboy themes, he's got dinosaurs in another corner of the room. All of these kind of all the kind of expected and quite wholesome tropes of what it meant to be kind of coded as a young boy growing up in times past, which I just think is very interesting that he exists in this sort of this strange temporal limbo. Any further thoughts about that?
Well, I think that this is something that Lynch has always done in his filmography, is that regardless of the time in which the film is taking place in, there's always that distinct callback to both the 1950s, but also respectively just something that almost feels like this could be a very, I always, especially with Twin Peaks, especially in The Return, I have a sensation of Jimmy Stewart in Rear Window. Like there's always, things are idyllic in our lives, but also there is something just right around the corner that maybe we don't want to look at or recognize. And that's sort of the thing that makes Twin Peaks so interesting to begin with, is because there is that sense of suspense and suspicion that maybe the world as we know it is not as peaceful or as good as we know it. And if we just look at the finer details, we find that we're in a place out of time, and survival senses kind of kick in, and we know that, maybe here some action needs to be taken.
Yes, interesting. I'm also reminded, someone says maybe Lynch's own room as a child. It's certainly a possibility, but I remember a story, so about the time that in the mid 2000s, Lynch's, I think, final living parent had died, and Lynch's brother was helping to clean out the parents' house, but I think they still lived in Montana. Maybe they'd moved somewhere else, and he called David Lynch, and he said, "I found in the basement, I found this thing behind, stuck behind a cabinet, and it's like it was one of Lynch's sketchbooks from when he was a child, about the age of Sonny Jim here." And Lynch, he said, "Do you want it?" And David said, "Well, yeah, okay, I guess." Well, he said, what's in the front cover of it? And his brother looked and he said, it says Inland Empire. And so that's actually where the title of the film Inland Empire came from. It was the discovery of this thing that Lynch had drawn when he was a child. So it's possible that there's a code there, but I think that young David Lynch was a distinctly stranger child than Sonny Jim. The other thing, of course, I talked about when we first met Janie E. And Sonny Jim, is that for me there's a very dark reference with Sonny Jim that I think floats around all of this, and I think sort of underscores this idea of kind of facade. I mean, you know, what is exactly the nature? Because of course we learned that Dougie Jones doesn't exist. I mean, there is no Dougie Jones was a tulpa of you know, of Mr. C or of Kyle MacLachlan, or probably a cross between both of them. And so there was no Dougie Jones. So what is the marriage? What is the home? What is, you know, again, remember Dougie's first word, you know, one of his first words was home. But what is home? What is the marriage of Sonny Jim, I mean, of Dougie and Janie? And what is the nature of their child? You know, I mean, what is the child of a tulpa and a human? So I do think that, of course, David Lynch was suggesting something very dark, which I'll
never considered that. I was gonna. Oh, look, I do want you to point out now though why you have flashed this this still shot of my psychosexual trauma.
This is a. I mean, if people haven't seen it, this is a still from an absolutely wonderful but also quite harrowing film called Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. It's based upon a play by Edward Albee. It was directed by Mike Nichols. I can't remember, probably 1960.
1962, I think.
Yeah, somewhere the early 1960s. And if you've not seen it, it's well,
if you want a journey into the dark heart of Sandbatch, like ladies, anybody out there wants to put a lasso on me, required viewing material. I have played exactly one stage role in my entire life, and you're looking at him.
Oh
right
man! Oh, you were George, were you? Oh my God. Well, see, for me, I was just going to say, you know, I can never watch it without being reminded of my parents, because these two are, you know, I mean, in a weird way, this is how I remember my parents. So, yeah, but it's quite a harrowing, but certainly a very interesting thing. But I don't want to spoil it. But if you know, you know, they have a son whom they refer to as Sonny Jim, and the nature of their son and his relationship to them is sort of at the center of this play. And anyway, but I would suggest that certainly David Lynch was making a reference.
I mean, he certainly is. And like, I remember you brought this up when we were watching it, and like I have noticed, especially in Lynch's career, that he tends to you know, I hate to just continue pointing out similarities, but he has this one thing that he does that's very similar to what I do. Like a long time ago when I was doing a show with Cap, I did an MK Ultra assessment of myself using the AI demon, and it got scary. Its assessment of me was frightening, and it said you have a tendency to re-enter images that you like psychologically re-enter images that you can't accept the outcome of, and like search for different solutions. And he does this a lot. He's going to do it again here. And I'm going to bring this up again later on in this episode, but this is an earlier oh my God, look how hot she is.
Stop it. My
life. but
God.
He, like, David Lynch cannot accept that this couple's relationship is so dysfunctional and it's entirely like, this is Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. The submerged ground of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf is this character Sonny Jim, who has, like, you know, they're sort of continuing in this sort of like afterlife that has like palpable sexual tension and definitely lust, but probably not love any longer because of a trauma surrounding this character Sonny Jim. David Lynch can't accept this. And so he has to re-enter the image and explore it from a different angle. He has to change things about it. That's exactly what's happening here.
Yeah, he has to incarnate Sonny Jim in a way, of course, that he wasn't. That he was a sort of a specter. The other thing, of course, I should mention is that there's a whole other plot line, which we will not come to for a few episodes yet, that is also very heavily referencing the relationship between the characters of George and Martha and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. And that is, of course, when we meet our old friend Audrey Horne and her husband, Billy.
Yeah, that's great. I brought it up when we were watching it. I was like, this is creepy.
It's very. I'm sorry, her husband is not called Billy. I can't remember her husband's name in Twin Peaks, but anyway, but an interesting line of thought. So we'll go back here. But
no, Billy is the unnamed.
Billy
character. Is always the missing character who there are implications about who Billy is. You know.
Yes, in Twin Peaks. Well, interesting. Of course, I don't know if you saw. Let's see, where is it?
It looks exactly like her too. Like that is they like dress that bitch up to look exactly like Elizabeth Taylor.
Also, remember that that George and Martha talk about a crazy Billy that is unseen in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. Weirdly enough, so all right. Yeah, so of course Dougie, you know, in his own catatonic way, is being a wholesome father, says goodnight to Sonny Jim, who seems to have nothing but just absolute sort of, you know, he just beams at Dougie all the time. He just absolutely loves him and finds his antics amusing and hilarious. And you know, again, the strange way that both Janie E and Sonny Jim just kind of, well, Dad's, you know, 80 pounds thinner and he's catatonic, but it's just Dad. So Dougie works his way back downstairs, and we find out why Janie E seemed so extra upset, which is, of course, someone sent her a packet of photographs of Dougie and Jade, the black prostitute. Of course, the hilarious bit for me is that these are obviously photographs of the tulpa Dougie, like the quote real Dougie. But again, she's not particularly struck by the fact that he looks like a completely different person, and yet these photographs were fairly recent, apparently. But someone, of course, is attempting to, I don't know, I guess this is blackmail. You know, it's attempting to sort of insert a bit of discord into the marriage by tipping her off to what her husband has been doing.
But again, it's just like one of these surreal instances where, like, she's almost she's like mythologically perfect here, because like there's a really strange way. There's a really again, this woman as an actress is incredible. Like the tight wire she's walking here, because this could easily be overacted one way or the other. And like she somehow manages to strike this like scolding but also somewhat affectionate tone that is totally discordant like with the content of what's actually happening here. And it's disorienting, actually. It's like you're like, as a viewer, you're sitting here watching, there's no way a woman could be this patient.
No.
That doesn't exist.
I mean, that's again one of the weird things about Janie. And I will say, of course, that this is a really difficult part to play, and Naomi Watts, of course, you know, I think nails it. But you're right; it could have easily been either very sort of one-dimensional or very kind of mannered in a way that she doesn't. I mean, she plays it as straight as it's possible to play this level of weirdness, you know. Well, I mean, evinced by the fact that obviously she's angry about this, but then the telephone rings and they basically receive a call from the people who have sent this material, who inform her basically that Dougie owes a huge gambling debt, and immediately the whole issue is dropped. You know, like she agrees to meet them, and you know, that's sort of it. Oh, okay, you were cheating on me with a black prostitute, and now I've discovered that you are tens of thousands of dollars in debt with shady figures who are sending us weird packets full of pictures. But I'm going to go to bed, and you think about what you've done, Dougie. Like it's so weird.
But also, you know, like there's this sort of aspect where they're calling back again to like sort of the serialized dramas of the 1950s, where like, like whatever happens in one episode of the Brady
Oh
Bunch,
yeah,
we wake up in a
about
brand,
to say.
we wake up in a brand new world every
Yep.
week.
Every day, everything resets. There. Well, that's one of the weird and sort of wonderful things about, particularly the genre of the sitcom. Now, of course, sitcoms, I mean, such as they exist, I don't know if they really exist in that way any longer, but they did start to have a kind of, they would have a book, and where they would try to keep track of things between one episode and the next. But it was completely in the character of most of these shows where there was no memory. There was no memory of what had occurred from one week to the next. So there is a kind of weird. Again, I mean, Dougie is the kind of weird blank cipher at the heart of so much of, kind of televisual and cinematic history. All these assumptions that we're meant to make, and Dougie's he's the perfect kind of person, living completely without history. It's very, very curious. Yeah, I forgot about that line. Jade gives 2 rides. So it's a good one. Yeah, and Audrey's husband is called Charlie. That's right. Thank you, Kooky Shaman. Kooky here. Speaking of Kooky, so Janie leaves Dougie for all of his work, and which are all of these, case files, and Dougie proceeds to mark them up with kind of hieroglyphs. I sort of looked back at all of these, all the images we saw, and I can't make heads or tails of it, but clearly,
I'm reminded of Chutes and Ladders.
Could be, yeah, it could be. I mean, I'm reminded a little of the kind of, remember the whole owl cave map that they have, which has all the kind of glyphs on it.
Yeah, I mean, the glyphs are the same style, and it's like the indications that they come from the same source. This kind of sort of other world,
Yep. So leaving Dougie and the rest of the family, we return to Albert and Gordon Cole, and Albert, of course, is on a mission on a rainy night. He's gone to Philadelphia because, of course, they both realize that they need the assistance of a person who was central to, of course, Agent Cooper and the whole scenario of Twin Peaks. And that is where we meet a character whom we never met in the first 2 series of the show. A character who we only knew of as a name and a micro cassette recorder. And that character's name, of course, was Diane. So yes, Albert goes to a bar in Philadelphia, and we meet Diane, who of course is Laura Dern.
Your fan service awaits.
So do gentlemen have any feelings about meeting Diane after all these years?
No. I mean, if you're a fan of Lynch, like, this is a great, like, who else would it be other than Laura Dern?
Yeah, it had
to play her. But I mean, also it's the great I think it's very good writing to incorporate a character that we had only seen in passing form. Like, this is just Diane, this is the woman back at the FBI field office that, he has worked with for years. And now we are introduced to an older, I don't want to say it's just like, oh, this is just Laura Dern playing Laura Dern.
It's literally, well, it's not because Laura Dern is from Hollywood, but it's like inserting this, like, you're like during the first 2 seasons of Twin Peaks, you sort of want to imagine her as this, like, sort of like, who is that woman from The Office?
Pam.
Yeah, you want to imagine her as like this Pam from The Office type figure, or like Lucy. Like she's like Cole. She's like a Cooper's like Lucy or some shit like that. And then you meet her, and she's this absolutely like dyed-in-the-wool bohemian Georgetown bitch. It's sort of like, she's like Adams Morgan Barfly or something like that. Like, she's she's like the least surprisable figure in the entire world. She's beautiful though. And the thing that's sort of the thing that was interesting about it for me is we started this like a week after we had watched Inland Empire, and I thought Laura Dern's performance in Inland Empire may be the best performance by any single actress ever in any movie. And I was really excited about this. And she does not disappoint at any turn here. I think there were a lot of mixed reviews on Laura Dern here, but like that's all Reddit tier nonsense. She's great at every turn. And she's playing a difficult character because it's a character that, I mean, her job here is basically to dismantle all expectations anyone has had about this character, and then set up another brutal twist. You know, oh, it's great.
Yeah, I remember, of course. When I initially watched the show all those years ago, I wasn't terribly happy because, of course, one of my favorite bits is that you never met Diane. Like, because it runs against every sort of trope of every fagged out, failing sort of television show as Twin Peaks became during its second season is that, what do we do now? Oh, let's make a whole soap opera subplot with James Hurley and some married woman. Let's make Lucy and Andy 100 times more annoying than they've ever been because people love Lucy and Andy. They love quirky humor. We got to meet Diane. You know, it is expected, you know, in the realm of kind of Hollywood shittery that, you know, that you would meet her. And I love that, of course, you resolutely did not meet her. And of course, this is not the image I had of Diane. I don't know what image I had of her. Probably, as you said, a bit like Gordon Cole's version of Lucy. But then I very quickly said that's actually the best part of it is that of course we get slapped in the face. Diane is, you know, wearing Bakelite jewelry and, you know, in is sort of dressed in this like very high end sort of European mid-century modern, like her whole sort of aura character. I mean, I've met women like this.
My mother is like,
wow.
It's like, yeah, she's like 60 and she wears leopard print, you know.
Well, it's again, I mean, of course, given Diane's sort of age, and you know, you don't expect her sat alone smoking and drinking martinis at a bar. But there we go. And so it's sort of brilliant because, of course, it's just every expectation that we had about what Diane might be.
There's a conceit on David Lynch's part here also where like I mean, I hate to point it out, but there's this like thinly veiled eroticism between the Gordon Cole character and the Diane character that is really just David Lynch and Laura Dern.
Yeah, they can't help. They can't help it.
He can't help himself.
No. There is a thing where you can look at behind the scenes stills of every actress that David Lynch ever worked with, and you will find photographs of them looking at him with such thinly veiled adoration.
You can say "fuck me" eyes. Like, we can be a little honest.
He had a weird effect on women. Maybe not so weird. So, yeah. So we meet. Excuse me. I'm doing something very American. I don't know why I have this. It's something that I actually absolutely despise, but it's a Hershey chocolate bar, and I'm just struck by how awful it is every time I have one. Yeah. So wonderful to meet Diane. And then you know we follow up by going to have another meeting with what I would say is the most unredeemable character besides Mr. C and the whole series is, of course, this fellow, who we, of course, learn is Ben Horn's grandson, and he
Richard Horn.
Richard Horn, thank you. Yeah,
Dick Horn.
Yep, Dick Horn. I don't know who this actor is, but he has this particularly sort of unpleasant, like bird-like, you know, he looks sort of like a turkey vulture in a weird way. Like, you know, he's got, you know, how some some men will have this sort of hawk-like, this raptor kind of look, this sort of streamlined nose, but he has like the absolute wrong kind of bird face.
He's like literally every Brooklynite millennial fuckboy is like I knew so many of these people.
His name is Eamon Farron, an Australian actor, and he is a millennial fuckboy. I nailed it to a T. Born in 1985.
Again, like you have to remember, like I'm like the most contemporary possible like audience for this. I think what I was 2016. I was 25 when it came out. It was like squarely in the age of like sort of millennial, like the peak of millennial pop culture dominance. Like I'm the target audience here.
Yeah, I noticed. I mean, I think it is actually very interesting because both of you are relatively from a similar generation. So I do wonder, of course, because this there exists, of course, as I said, the kids of the Twin Peaks people, of course, the millennial offspring of many of these characters. Of course, they aren't all right. They didn't turn out all right. In fact, it seems that the millennial Twin Peaks generation is probably just as troubled or more troubled than the millennials in general. So it is interesting to sort of get a viewpoint of.
Well, this was something that Sandy had pointed out, I think, in the very first episode, is that you're not in that world anymore. Like any sort of still idyllic idealism of, oh, how quirky or how far off and romantic, like we can kind of imagine this town. I mean, when this came out, I think any millennial Sandy's age can definitely see themselves in any one of the characters or the children presented. Whereas now the sort of Gen X, like Bobby redeems himself by being a cop, but like the Horns child, or not necessarily, or Audrey's son here is not particularly like in the best position to really be anything other than like an absolute douchebag, and it kind of shows. I think everyone, like Sandy had said, shows that. But now we're also trying to come back to this world 25 or as close to 25 years later as you can, and the world, of course, has certainly changed since the early 1990s. And how do you reflect that? Well, I mean, not just technologically but also socially. Like, what's considered acceptable? Smoking isn't necessarily as in vogue as it used to be, but even then it's still a present theme here, the tobacco usage. I also think it kind of coincides with the hipster moment. But nevertheless, like we're part of a world where like the children are not all right because the world is functionally not all right. Because we also have to remind ourselves that Mr. C has been doing unspeakable evil in this world that has, lost any sort of virginal innocence, and wasn't really all that innocent to begin with, because as we find out in the first two seasons of Twin Peaks, what we considered to be this, so idyllic, Pacific Northwest town has also got drugs and crazy psychiatrists that want to sleep with their patients. And we've also got a hotel that's just running for drugs and all sorts of stuff. It's not
international.
I would point out, though, it's not as dark.
Hong Kong crime. Remember the whole Josie, that arc, where she's some sort of like weird, like, international criminal.
It's not as dark as Fire Walk with Me, which is like incredibly dark.
Yeah.
But I would also point out just the composition of the shot here. Look how much brown there is. Everything is fucking brown.
Everything is millennial gray.
Yeah.
Very, very brown.
Grayish. Like we're like careening towards grayish.
Interestingly, of course, is that I think we also have a weird analog of, remember Bobby and Mike, the quarterback of the football team who was dating the prom queen Laura Palmer and all that. Well, we sort of return to them because, of course, in this scene we discover that Richard Horn here, he starts out this scene by, of course, is having had a hit of what is apparently the most incredible cocaine that he's ever had, sort of having his mind blown. And
stuff you can only get at TPUSA.
Dear, oh dear, or in Ukraine. Yeah, and so of course we discover that he's a sort of dirtbag running drugs. The thing, of course, about that we did learn about Bobby Briggs is that he was redeemed. That he actually however much of a dirtbag, but we learned really. I mean, you remember, of course, one of my favorite scenes in the I think the first series is where Dr. Jacoby basically takes Bobby apart in like 5 minutes, and has Bobby just like weeping, because of course he's not really a kind of criminal drug mastermind. He's just some stupid kid who got himself involved in the weird, steamy underworld of Twin Peaks, Washington. And of course, was eventually able to extirpate himself from that situation. But here we see another analog. Again, a kid about slightly older maybe than Bobby was, but who's doing the same thing. He's apparently running drugs for this man who is called Red, and who of course is another Lynch stalwart. His name is Balthazar Getty, and yes, he is one of those Gettys. In fact, he's the grandson of John Paul Getty, the old man, and but he played one of the sort of main characters in Lost Highway, whose name escapes me at the moment. But so of course we see, and again, it's sort of, as Twin Peaks Return was, a meeting of all of these sort of actors from David Lynch past. But he's obviously the kind of kingpin of whatever world this is, and he proceeds to do a kind of what seems to be a magic trick, except of course it turns out to be like actual magic. He flips a coin into the air, and of course it stops in midair, and then it appears in Richard Horne's mouth. Like, he does this weird thing, basically to say, well, in fact, he literally says in this scene, if you fuck me over, if you do anything stupid, then I will literally like eat you. I will kill you and eat you. Like, you don't know who you're messing with, you little fuck. And he does manage to again shake up poor Richard here momentarily, though, because of course, like any good millennial shitbag, he immediately, of course, leaves, and fuming and angry, sputtering, he'll call me kid. No one calls me kid. I'll show him, even though he has apparently the ability to do actual magic and stop things in midair and all those things. But yeah, I'll show him. So of course, Richard leaves that meeting, and driving, of course, angrily. Meanwhile, we meet another old friend from Twin Peaks, who is Carl Rod. And you remember way back when, and in Firewalk with Me as well, Carl Rod was the manager of the Fat Trout Trailer Park, and he, of course, remains the manager of the new Fat Trout Trailer Park.
He is my second favorite character in this entire series.
Yeah, he's a very good character. I've always been quite intrigued by his character. You actually voiced something that I always felt was implied, and then you just came out and said it, which is that, of course, that Carl Rod is kind of functions as a manifestation of God, like his.
The lineage here is. This was always. I remember going back to my ninth grade literature course, my ninth grade American literature course, Coach Coops' English class. We read The Great Gatsby, and of course, and this is a trope that really gets picked up in American modernism, is that there will often be a present symbol that operates as a sort of witness of the wounds of modernity, and they're usually very steeped in modernity. They're usually very worldly, and the way it sort of manifests in The Great Gatsby is under the watchful eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg, who is actually just doesn't appear in The Great Gatsby at all. He's just on a billboard. But this trope does appear in American fiction over and over, in American fiction and American creative modernity over and over and over again, that you will have this very, this is a very Protestant conceit, I should point out also, that you have this very present godlike character who is often not particularly wealthy. He's usually like sort of downtrodden, and operates as either the moral center of the story or as the sort of the witness to ugliness that has a sort of quiet grace to him. And this is definitely the character, and it's played of course by, I mean, if you don't recognize him, that's Harry Dean Stanton, who is one of the greatest actors in American history. You know?
Yes.
I think it's his last role as well.
It's his last. Yeah, it's his last role. I believe he was actually sort of ailing when he performed it. And another, of course, Lynch stalwart. He gave a great performance in Wild at Heart and also in Inland Empire.
He is, of course, he's the star of my favorite movie ever, which is Wim Wenders' Paris, Texas.
Yep.
And like again, I have to insert this. This was I told you I was going to do this again, and maybe I'll probably mention it again whenever we do that. Whenever we sort of get there. But this is another instance when Harry Dean Stanton appears in David Lynch's creations. There is a moment. Okay, so like you have David Lynch's early work, which is like, you know, he's doing Eraserhead and he's doing Dune or whatever, but then there is this like strong volta in the work of David Lynch that I have noticed centers around the moment when this film Paris, Texas was released. And I have a working theory that David Lynch personally found the film Paris, Texas so unbearably haunting that its residues continue to appear. He's doing this thing again where he's re-entering the symbol and exploring it from different angles, trying to give it different resolutions. And if you know the story, I'm not going to talk about it because I don't want to start crying on the air, but Paris, Texas is this devastatingly brutal picture of sort of middle American masculinity. And in this iteration of Harry Dean Stanton, there are just whispers and implications and sort of emotive overtones that suggest that this is, in a sense, a continuation of the character. This is where Harry Dean Stanton's character from Paris, Texas runs to ground, and this is his sort of end game. That maybe he crosses over into this other universe, and we get to find out what goes on at the end of Paris, Texas. It's like, okay, he arrives in Twin Peaks in this other sort of like creative world line. So yeah, if you're familiar, and if you're not familiar with Paris, Texas, go watch it. But I mean, be careful. If you're a dude, be careful because it's gonna take you out.
Indeed, yeah, and from a director that I quite admire, Wim Wenders. So, so Carl Rod is taking his daily trip into town, and actually, this guy again, we get a sense of his benevolent nature by the fact, this guy is a resident of the Fat Trout Trailer Park, is obviously caring for, I think, his ailing mother or something, because they have this conversation about her getting a wheelchair from the government, And there's another scene, which I don't remember if it's happened yet, where one of the other residents talks about, Carl asks him, have you been going to sell your blood again?
This is my favorite line in the whole series. I don't like people selling their blood to eat.
Like people selling their blood to eat. But yes, I mean, it's certainly reinforced of the moral nature of Carl Rod. And I should also, this is still from Firewalk.
Wait, go back real quick.
All right, hang on.
Look at the composition again. It's all brown.
I love this line, though. I've been smoking for 75 years, because then you're brutally reminded, oh yeah, Harry Dean Stanton is that fucking old in this.
Yeah.
I think he said he had started smoking when he was like 15 in an interview one time, and so it's just like, no, that tracks for his age. I think he was like 90 something when he came back to do this.
Yeah, he was quite old.
92, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing, of course, because Fire Walk with Me was 93. and was 1993, and he still look. I mean,
He was 90. He was 90.
90 for Harry
90,
Dean Stanton. He looks pretty good. He aged pretty well. whatever that's worth. But anyway, so we're going into, I think, one of the more harrowing scenes in the entirety of this show, and I know, Prude, you said you may have to cut out a bit early, so just let me know.
I will. I think I'm good on time.
Okay. So of course we're getting these scenes intercut, of course, with the foreboding knowledge that there's going to be a point where we get these two things cross over. We get the Richard Horne and we get the Carl Rod. And of course, there's already sort of anxiety about that, because it's just like, oh, what is it? How is this intersection going to be manifested? But Carl Rod, of course, what does he go into town for every day? Well, apparently he says to the guy in the, that he's riding with in the van, he says, I just like to get out of this trailer park. But he basically gets a cup of coffee from the Double R and sits in the park and has a cigarette with appropriate reverence, looking at nature. There's shots of him sort of looking at the the trees above him and enjoying the enjoying the activities in the park. He sees a young mother chasing her her son through the park. He smiles, again, sort of heartwarming, idyllic scene. And then again, amidst this palette of brown and green, you get a big David Lynch warning, which is a cut to this. And again, I mean, color symbolism and particularly David Lynch's relationship to red. For me, this is the warning sign. This is the warning sign. And so the young mother and her son, of course, go to this intersection, and they're waiting to cross the street. A benevolent Middle Eastern lorry driver, says, I'll let you go. She waves to him, I'll let you can go first. And unfortunately, Richard Horne races through with his truck and smashes the child, runs over him. I should point out that fans of Twin Peaks might recognize, because this is the same intersection, and this is a still from Firewalk with Me. This is the same intersection. In fact, you can see the man in the walker. That's where the young boy ran across the road that we just saw, get hit and run. But in Firework, in the convertible, you see that's Leland Palmer and Laura Palmer. But there's a really harrowing scene here in Firewalk with Me where you see the weird van behind them. It turns out that Mike, the one-armed man, is driving it, and he's sort of like Leland can't get the car to, like, he wants to move but that logging truck is waiting for the old man, and so the van being driven by the one-armed man, he's revs up and he's like spinning, like driving around the whole, the truck, and driving to get over to talk to Leland and Laura, and Leland is just revving the car, spinning the wheels, burning rubber, and and there's an interaction. I won't go through the whole scene, but
actually, one of the most disturbing scenes in the entire Twin Peaks-averse. It's incredibly jarring. I actually thought that was the most incredible. I thought it was the most jarring portion of Fire Walk with Me.
Interesting. Yeah. And what's weird is, of course, you don't again. I mean, like a kind of bad dream, you don't quite. Like, there's nothing obvious, it's not like there's demons or somebody, there's trying to kill the whatever. Like, you don't quite understand what is so upsetting about it. Of course, because Laura starts screaming and Leland is screaming, and the car is, being enveloped in smoke, and the one-armed man pulls up and, of course, starts screaming out the window, and he says, "He stole the corn! I had it canned over the store." Anyway, he gives these cryptic lines, and he is waving his hand, his remaining hand, And he's wearing the Owl Cave ring. He's wearing the green ring, which we see so many times in all three series.
Wait, so are you familiar? I mean, and I know probably familiar, but I've been going back through this for some of my own work recently. Are you familiar with Edmund Burke's sort of dissertation on the nature of the sublime?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So there's, and I'm doing this because I'm doing a lot of work on English Romanticism right now. And one of the things that I'm struck by whenever I go back through Burke's conceptions, the introduction is the section that almost everybody has to read, but it's actually a very long exegesis, and he gives different sources of the sublime in different contexts, and the terror of the sublime is probably, to me, it's the most interesting. Okay, and so there are two dimensions along which the sort of terrifying, the sort of sublimity of this scene operates on, and one of them is the sudden collapse of distance. Okay, so Burke gives the concept of the abstraction of horror at great distance, and also the unspeakableness, the unspeakableness of like sort of being jammed in this like situation where you're having to watch a character when you already, this is, I mean, Rear Window operates on this principle. Almost all Hitchcock operates on the second principle, which is that the viewer is sort of fetishistically trapped in with more information than the characters themselves have. And this scene operates on both of these axes, where, okay, so we are already privy to certain knowledge about all of these characters that the characters themselves are not. But then there is also the sudden collapse of distance between that which is horrible and that which is familiar. So you have this jarring domesticity that is juxtaposed against this sudden emergence of this like sort of primeval horror, and that's what makes the scene so beautifully composed and also terrifying, an actual manifestation of the sublime. The ring there, that's the information that we have that like nobody else has here, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just had to insert my bullshit.
Well, I think that's certainly true, and it's been admittedly, because I remember taking a course about the nature of the sublime many years ago at university, and that's probably the last time I read that bit of Edmund Burke. But yeah, of course, at the climax of this scene from Fire Walk with Me, of course, Leland is screaming and the car engine is screaming and people are, Leland is blowing the horn and Mike's waving his finger and he says, "It's him! It's your father!" And when he says father, Leland's like, "Ah!" And then finally the logging truck moves and they speed away into a auto repair shop, right at that moment. And it's sort of this moment where, and you don't really know again if Laura heard that or if she understood what was happening there, because she says, I mean, after this is over and they're both, sitting in the convertible decompressing from this, she's like, "Who was that?" And yeah, it's no, it's a very unsettling scene for various reasons. But yes, this is, of course, the same place where this is the same intersection where, of course, this horrible thing, one of the most egregious horrible things that happens in Twin Peaks: Return, it's this primal scene. It ends up, for whatever reason, that this intersection, which is pictured also in other times in the series, sometimes at night. If you remember in the original show, there were shots of the traffic light, and sometimes it would change to red, and sometimes it would change to green, sort of swinging in the breeze at night. And so, again, for whatever reason, this intersection, this crossroads between these worlds, is this sort of primal scene of kind of horror and revelation, perhaps. And so, yes, I mean, Richard Horne just completely runs over the child and drives away. And of course, Carl Rodd witnesses this, and he stood there. Everyone's sort of in shock. There's lots of pedestrians around for some reason, and everyone, no one is done any. No one has gone to aid, gone to aid the woman or comfort her, or whatever. Everyone's just sort of standing there, and Carl Rod, he sees a shape rise from the scene. There it is, a sort of a flame. If you remember the scene of Dougie with the slot machines, it's the same sort of fire that appears above the ones that turn out to be the active ones, except of course in that case it had the Black Lodge kind of in it. But no, Carl Rod witnesses, of course, the flight of the spirit of this, and I think that this is the moment where I'm like, yeah, okay, I see the role of this character, of course, because he is the one who ultimately does go over first, and in a scenario which, as an artist and a student of art history, can only remind me of the Pietà, of the scene of the Blessed Virgin cradling the body of her son who has been taken down from the cross. And there's this moment of comfort and absolution. I took these stills because I was interested to hear your reaction, because it's the first time we sort of see random denizens of Twin Peaks, and I can't help but notice that they're all kind of like, maybe they're a bit older than millennials, but they're a very, it seems that Twin Peaks has been kind of hipsterized in a way. Like they're a diverse and hip group of people all hanging around this weird rural intersection for some reason. I don't know.
I mean, we're by the park, first of all. So there's that, but also, I mean, I'm thinking of the time. I mean, this is the Pacific Northwest in the 2010s.
Yeah.
Like, of course, it's going to be gentrified, and there's going to be a bunch of people out and about doing these things. In a way, it's almost as if Twin Peaks has experienced some kind of like Austin, Texas syndrome, where just a whole bunch of fucking people have moved there, and we're all trying to experience the things that like made Austin weird. Like, I would not be surprised if there was a, late 20-something owning a fucking storefront that, had something to the equivalent of keeping Twin Peaks weird. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
There's such strong Austin. There's such, of course, and remember also this was 2016. There's such strong Austin vibe.
Oh yeah,
all shot through all of this.
Well, also particularly with the Roadhouse and the groups
and every band there. That I think Sandy and I have both seen live.
Literally every time one of them came on, I was like, "Oh, all these guys in Austin."
Yeah, but a truly horrific scene. I don't know if you have any.
But I mean, it's a horrific scene. But we have this sort of this is beautiful right here. It's a Caravaggio composition.
Yeah.
And you do have this wonderful, like, sort of. This is like classic Lynchian. It's like, okay, this awful thing happens, but this awful thing that happens is also conversely provides sort of a reprieve against the metaphysical darkness of the rest of the rest of our plot as a whole, because we do have this tangible image of this spirit like ascending. Okay, which we don't get anywhere else. I mean, everywhere else we get like spirits trapped and there's tulpas and there's all kinds of shit going on.
Yeah.
There is this scene here is like, I mean, when you view it in the context of the rest of the series, it doesn't. This is not a plot line that sees any other resolution. This is it. This is all you get from it, really. And so that's the only thing it's there for.
It's never referred to again. Interestingly enough.
And so, like, what is it? It's this, if you're familiar with the criticism of T.S. Eliot in his not in tradition of the individual talent, I think it's in the idea of a Christian society. He develops this concept of the objective correlative, against which, and I was talking to the editor of Spectre Poets, and I were having a conversation about this the other day. She's from California. She has a very interesting take on some things, but I'm not gonna say what she said. But idea here is that you have to have this. Again, this is why this God figure is inserted here, is because in order for any sort of creative work to make sense, for you to be able to do any kind of sense making with it, you have to have an objective correlative. There has to be this. There has to be at least one frame of reference against which the morality of everything else can be judged. Otherwise, you're totally disoriented. You're in a wasteland. You're looking at a heap of broken images. And this scene, in fact, does provide that for arguably for the entire Twin Peaks meta narrative. This is the only time you get this unrelieved, this unambiguous statement of both positive morality and confirmation of a God. And it's there, okay. And it ultimately has, so I mean, it's brutal, it's disturbing, but it has this effect of redeeming the entire narrative in its own way.
Interesting. Yeah, and it is one of the few scenes of actual sort of transcendence. And and again, I mean, it's clear that no one else goes over to do anything. Like everyone else has just stood there, looking sad or shocked. But it is only Carl Rod who goes over, lays his hands on her, and she does seem to be, obviously in this horrible moment, she does seem to be comforted.
Yeah, well, I mean, here we go to the end, just to talk about how unremittingly Protestant this vision actually is. There's a line in Book 7 of Paradise Lost where Milton says, "The meaning, not the name, I call." So this is what you're actually seeing is this Carl Rod is the man of action, he who does the thing rather than speaks it. And it's like the morality of his action and his presence here is like sort of sharply contrasting with that of the fallen world, those who speak but do not do. I got way into that. Sorry.
No, that's good. I like it. And I should add, before we go to the next scene, but of course there is one person who makes eye contact with Richard Horne as he drives away from after murdering this child, and it's this person who we actually met earlier. She goes into the Double R to get some coffee, as we learn that she's a teacher. She's like a preschool, or just a teacher of some, or a tutor or something. And there's like a very cozy scene with Shelley and Norma, and they're talking to. And I don't remember the waitress is she German?
Yes, she's German.
She's in the original show as well, but she's like she just giggles all the time.
Yeah, giggly, bubbly. I think she's literally called Heidi.
Heidi, yeah, it is. You're right, Heidi. Yeah, this girl is called Miriam, but there's a whole scene where Heidi and Miriam have a conversation about the cute kids, and Shelley and Norma. Oh, look at this big tip she left us. She doesn't have any money, and let's treat her. Let's treat her to some pies or something the next time she comes in, or whatever. And then, of course, this is her. I mean, where she goes afterwards, she's got the coffees, but she's the one. She sees Richard Horne, and he sees her, so he knows, of course, that she saw him, and she knows that it was he who committed the hit and run. So which becomes pertinent in another episode. And then before we leave this scene, we see that next to this intersection from hell is this, and this is something that we have seen quite a few times before that. 324, 810, and 6. And I'm going to pull up. I've got stills from. So we see this, and then the camera pans up to, of course, the top of this pole, which is, we see the transformer and the electrical fixtures and all of that. And I'm just going to pull up a still from Firewalk with Me.
Also, that electrical hum that is present there as well, of course, just because it's right next to a transformer. But we see it every time that there is the mention or the presence of something that's otherworldly.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, this is, of course, and this is where, as Sandy's referencing, this is the most Christian part, I think, of Twin Peaks. because this is the Beatitudes played out. Just unfortunately, of course, with the loss of an innocent life. But the mourn are comforted. And of course, the pure in heart were like this innocent child. This is the only spirit that ascends.
Yeah.
And so he shall see God. And of course, like you mentioned, it's a caveat, it's perfect in the sense that like this is the one thing I think out of all the plot lines or anything that gets shown in Twin Peaks, this is the only thing that is, I think, completely self-contained and completed in such a short amount of time, and deliberately done so in this terrible, dark, and evil place. There is such higher powers that will enable that, like there is still good here, even in the worst aspects of our life.
So the number 6.
Yeah, I mean,
the Venus number.
Sandy is so ready for me to shut up.
No, the
Well,
Venus number.
I was wondering, I never looked into it, and I've never really thought about it. I mean, the significance of these numbers, because of course, for the fact that David Lynch recreated this prop over the course of 25 years to bring it back with the same numbers on it, it certainly invites people to speculate upon the meaning of this. I don't know. I didn't give it a lot of thought. I'm sure I don't know what the Venus number is, but I'll accept that.
Oh, yeah, it's the as above, so below. It's so.
Oh.
It's 3. It's there's a 3 on top of the 3 on bottom. If you want to get really wild, you can reduce 3, 2, 4, 8, 1, 0. So there's 3 plus 2 plus 4 plus 8 plus 1 plus 0 equals 18, and then 1 plus 8 equals 9. So you have 2 instances of 18. There'd be 2 instances of 9, and then 1 instance of 9. There's a lot going on here.
And then the 6 if 6 turned out to be 9, yeah. I'm just again remarkable. And as Prude mentioned, yeah, you also get the sound, and you do hear it very faintly, that hum. But I also, if people recall the little man from Another Place, who is the who in wow, I don't remember if it's in Fire Walk with Me or if it's in the original series. No, it's in Fire Walk with Me. He says, do you know who I am? I am the arm, and I sound like this.
Those are pretty good imitation of
That's
it,
what,
though.
yeah, no. I mean, that's always fascinated me, of course, the idea that he is the arm, the manifestation, of course, of Mike's missing arm, which Mike cut off so that he could remove his connection to Bob. But also that, again, for David Lynch, and there's, we don't quite have time to do it, but there is a whole running significance to the idea of electricity in all of David Lynch's work. Even in the unproduced movie, which is called Ronnie Rocket, which David Lynch fans will know about. But and in this, certainly in this series, it comes up again. I will have more to say about that. I think it's particularly manifested in scenes of the firemen and of Senorita Ditto, who are characters that, well, we've met the fireman, and we shall meet her in a later episode. But yes, electricity, and I'll just while I have it, these are 2 shots also from Fire Walk with Me, but interestingly, yes, we are sort of treated to that to that motif in The Return. So, back to Las Vegas and to this character who's called Duncan Todd, who we have seen before in his immaculate office decorated with some of David Lynch's lamp sculptures. The thing on the left side and the red thing in the background. Both of those are from a series of lamp sculptures that Lynch made and exhibited at Pace Gallery. Kind of a big deal, but
where is the Pace Gallery?
Well, they've got locations. I mean, there's certainly one in New York. There's one in Los Angeles. It's an international. It's a bit like it's a bit like a Gagosian. It's a bit like any of these real blue chip galleries. Yeah, but his show was
It would be the same people that own Pace Pictures. Is it probably? Yeah, it's got to be almost the same thing.
could be. Yeah, I mean Pace has been around forever. Do oh.
9 locations worldwide. Sorry, it was just jarred me.
Yeah,
Me to
because
something.
Pace used to Pace. I don't know if I don't know if they're still just Pace. They used to be called Pace Wildenstein, and it was co-owned by the Wildenstein. Do you remember that lion woman who had all the surgeries to make herself look like a lion?
Yes.
Yeah, that was the wife of the man who was the principal of Pace Wildenstein, which is
Founded in Boston.
Boston,
Yeah,
eh?
okay. So Boston's the original.
Yeah. So, but anyway, that's where David Lynch's lamp sculpture show, which I love those things. But here's Duncan Todd again in his office doing, we're not quite sure of the nature of what he is. Like, he's obviously some well-placed figure, a CEO of something or other. Of course, we learn earlier that he's connected with Mr. C. And is involved in some sort of nefarious enterprise. But he sat here in his office and he gets an alert on his computer, which causes him to go and retrieve this file from one of the cabinets. I'm sort of struck by these Duncan Todd things again, because it's all the kind of tropes of high crimes, and yet the nature of it is never really revealed. Like what is he? Is he sort of a middleman? Is he the person who kind of who kind of takes care of Mr. C's affairs in the world and gives him kind of cover? It's never quite clear. And of course, there is a resolution to this story that comes in a later episode. But we see this envelope with a black spot on it, which will become important in a few minutes.
Very Robert Louis Stevenson, might I add.
Oh, the black spot?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Never thought of that. You don't want to get the black spot if you're a pirate.
No, you don't.
No. And speaking of black spots, we meet again the dark mirror of Janie E. You missed last week. I think we talked about this, Sandy, but my theory, of course, is that this girl and her son, she's got a little neglected son who we saw in an early episode sat on a filthy sofa eating saltine crackers because, of course, his mother just sits there and says 119. And of course, the balloon. I sort of showed the reference.
Oh, you're going to stop and say wood. Sorry.
That's insightful commentary.
Yeah.
Well, I hate to. Yeah, I remember when this character first appeared on screen. You said something of that nature. I could fix her. Or, I don't know.
She's literally. I can fix her.
She could fix you.
The cameo.
She could fix you. But I mentioned, of course, that she sat in front of this contemporary Vanitas still life, all the kind of manifestations of worldly vice, the pin and the cards and the pills and the liquor and the blow lamp. But of course, just to reiterate, people can go back and watch last week's episode. But when we first meet Janie E, and when Dougie goes home, much is made about the fact that Dougie missed Sonny Jim's birthday, and scattered all over the Jones household are a bunch of balloons. And I think it's quite significant that and of course they live off of Lancelot Court. They live in this sort of, this sort of this sort of development type. But then of course we go here to Rancho Rosa, which is of course this, I hate to use the word, but it really is a kind of an absolute liminal space. It is this blank, uninhabited, sort of shell of a it's a sort of dark mirror, as I said, of the sort of familial sitcom of the Joneses. I mean, here we have, of course, a manifestation of what happens if Dougie doesn't come home, what happens if if fate had turned in slightly different ways? This is Janie E, and the little boy that we see with her is Sonny Jim. Of course, the balloon on the floor. This is again another kind of world line. At least that's how I see it. I just can't help but think that there's a deliberately glass darkly here. But what her son witnessed, of course, we remember last time, is that Dougie's car, which was parked across the street, exploded because someone put an explosive device underneath, and then some thugs came to try to jack the car, and they got blowed up real good. And so of course we see the crime scene. Of course, the police find the license plate on the roof of, and that's the house where the woman and the boy live. But of course, the license plate which says Dougie Love. But whoever did it failed to get Dougie. But I think it's interesting, of course, that this is manifested in in Rancho Rosa, which is certainly as close to limbo as I could possibly imagine. A treeless subdivision, uninhabited subdivision outside
Rancho Rosa, the pink ranch.
Rancho Rosa. Yeah, I can hear him saying it. Any kind of words about this? Is a little plot development, I suppose.
Moving right along.
Moving right along.
Moving right along. So then we meet another nasty little character, and I mean little character, who is called Spike. Ike the Spike. And of course, in a motel, and what slides under the door? But an envelope with a black spot on it. And so, of course, Ike opens it, and there's a picture of this woman that we talked about before, Lorraine, and a picture of Dougie Jones. And he has his little ice pick, I suppose. That also, just like the screwdriver in Inland Empire, this is almost certainly something that David Lynch made because it's such a weird prop. Like, it's, do you remember the screwdriver in Inland Empire that Laura Dern has and ultimately gets stabbed by? Anyone? No?
No.
Well, I vaguely remember it being there, but no, not really.
Anyway, it's one of these props, but there's a whole thing about David Lynch talking about making and there's even like a little video of him actually working on it. But this also strikes me as a prop that he would have made. But yes, Spike, who seems to be a hitman of sorts, has been given these two figures and sort of hits Dougie Jones right in the nose. So I also like the little tableau of his dinner here. What little salt shaker, the bullet bourbon.
Not bad if you're on a budget.
Yeah. It's a bit highbrow for me, but But anyway, so obviously Ike has been given his instructions, and we return to, of course, Lucky 7 Insurance. Dougie brings all those files upon which he's drawn these glyphs. These glyphs, I suppose, is the only word I can think of. And of course, a bewildered what's his name? Bud. No.
His boss.
Bushnell. Yes. Mr. Bushnell. Yes. Of course, bewilderedly goes through the files, exasperated. And of course, I love, as Dougie does, just sat there with a gormless look on his face. But as he goes through the files, he sort of does a double take, and he starts to kind of look back at them, and then he says something to the effect of, extraordinary, and says basically thank you. Like, whatever Dougie was trying to convey, Mr. Bushnell figured it out. So very curious. And so there are things happening at Lucky Seven as well. We're getting a lot of kind of subplots set up to be knocked over in subsequent episodes. And
yeah, at least the implication that the guy he called a liar is embezzling money.
Yeah, exactly. There's another character, who we've seen around. We saw Dougie have an interaction with him in a meeting. So, and that plot will, of course, come to fruition in a later episode. And then we get a favorite scene of mine, which of course it's the day where Janie E is arranged to meet the people to whom Dougie owes the money. And so
this is probably one of my favorite moments in the entire series.
Yeah, I love the facial expression, but goes to meet them at a park, and they are like perfect central casting dirtbags. Is that a Jeep Wagoneer? That's Janie E's car. I mean, David Lynch, of course, always pays special interest to
Cars and lamps.
To cars and lamps, yeah. But I kind of have a thing for those old sort of wood-grained Grand Wagoneers. I don't know if that's what it is. But she meets these gentlemen and she gives them a hell of a speech. And again, which would not happen in any conceivable manifestation of reality. I mean, she's meeting some, some obviously criminals, to whom Dougie owes an enormous amount of money. It's the idea of being dressed down by a fierce suburban mum, but it's perfect. It works very well, and she gives them a whole speech. We are not wealthy people. We drive cheap, terrible cars. Yeah, and so of course she gives them an offer they can't refuse, which she says, "I will pay you the kind of principal, and I will pay you, 5% interest." She's like, "That's better than you're gonna get, at any bank or something like that." And they're speechless, and they take the roll of money, and she walks away, and she basically says, "I never want to hear from you again." And of course, a truth nuke, indeed, Janie E. We are living in a dark age, a little dark age, a big dark age, but a dark age. All right, so we're kind of coming to the end. Any comments about this? It's a really pleasing scene. Again, with that combination of comedy and vague televisual surrealism. Tough crowd.
Tough crowd.
Yeah.
Oh, it's one of those. I mean, it just speaks for itself. I don't think it needs much much commentary.
Yeah. I just the role of money. It's great. But Naomi Watts is. I mean, she plays this again just perfectly. It was probably a tough scene to do. But anyway, we find Spike, weird sort of hip hoppy music playing during this seemed very incongruous for some reason. But Lorraine in her office, and Spike, of course, runs in and basically just brutally hacks her to pieces.
Lorraine gets the Trotsky treatment.
Oh man, worse than the Trotsky treatment, because of course, there's a very uncomfortable where he basically, chops into her, and then he plunges it into her chest, and then he rotates it around in this horribly lust-moored, psychosexual, violent thing. And it's really awful, this scene. It's really horrible. I particularly like this. I like the teeth as the mirror of the soul, and the fact that you hire an assassin who is a dwarf who runs around in broad daylight with an ice pick kills
See, like,
his.
some of this stuff is like seems nonsensical to me. Like there are occasionally like bits and pieces that are inserted here. The whole Ike the Spike characters, like character development storyline, doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
No,
No.
it doesn't. Well, that's what I again. I mean, there's kind of quaint absurdity, and then there's just like, so you're Mr. C, assuming that this is Mr. C. You're a criminal mastermind, evil person through and through. Well, and so you hire as your hitman, again, a dwarf who runs around in broad daylight, screaming. I might add, he is screaming and she is screaming as he chops people up with an ice pick in the office again during working hours. It just seems like maybe not the best way to conduct a hit. Like, he could have jumped her on the way out at night. He could have done any number of things, but no. And then, of course, he ends up, killing a couple of other people at this office. A woman basically sees him do it, and then he goes and kills her off screen. And then, of course, in classic Freudian symbolism, of course, his spike gets bent, and sort of taken out of commission, I suppose. Anyway, a very weird scene. The whole Lorraine arc honestly doesn't make any sense to me, and I don't understand what it out of all the weird little plot lines and cul-de-sacs, it's the most sort of senseless to me. I don't get it. I don't know if people have other feelings. I'm just not terribly fond of it. But now it's over, so we don't have to think about it anymore. Never mentioned again, of course.
No.
But anyway. Well, yeah. So someone says the original dwarf wasn't available. No, so it is notable to me, of course, that Michael J. Anderson, who played the man from another place in the original series, of course, was not available for reasons that I talked about once for the return. So it is interesting that I can just hear David Lynch. Well, I need another dwarf. I've got to have a dwarf. I don't know. Anyway.
It's sort of a requirement.
Yeah. You got to have it, yeah. And a monkey, a spider monkey. A Eurasian girl and a teenage girl with one leg. That's all Inland Empire stuff. Back to the Twin Peaks Sheriff Office. And, of course, this is Deputy Hawk. And do you remember a scene where the log lady gives him a kind of prophecy that says it will have something to do with your heritage or your people or something? Do you remember that?
Yes.
And basically you'll know it when it happens. And so he's in the toilet cubicle, and he drops a coin, or he sees a coin and picks it up, and of course it's an Indian head. What is it?
A buffalo nickel.
Nickel, yeah, yeah. And then whilst he's down there, he sort of turns around and he sees at the bottom of the toilet door the little Nez Perce Manufacturing Company label, and I think that's where it kind of strikes him. Okay, and training his eyes up, he sees that the door is kind of buggered.
And it's been that way for 25 years.
It's been that way for 25 years, apparently. No one, there've been no improvements to the sheriff's office. I can believe it, actually. And so, of course, he pries it open. One of the other completely unredeemable characters, Chad, comes in to have a go at him. And
the worst character. The really, fucking worst.
Yeah. Kind of
just look at him. He's like literally the epitome of everything I despise in my own generation. Like whenever I'm like when I'm talking about fat diabetic dudes like playing sports, like doing sports betting while their wives are like shaking their ass on the floor to like TikTok AI generated music. This is the guy I'm talking about. he's just the worst. Like, this is like everything that I find morally repugnant in the world encapsulated in one fucking person.
Wow. Well, I don't like him. He's also a complete piece of shit. And we learn earlier that, of course, he is in cahoots with Richard Horne. Because they met at the Roadhouse at the end of one of the, and of course that his name is Chad. Irony of ironies. I don't know if Chad had the same connotations back in 2015,
Chad actually used to be like the name, before the reskinning of Chad, like Chad was like, like the fucking like fat ginger dude with a pot face that like wore like open-toed shoes and didn't trim his toenails and was like,
all right, you're hitting a bit close to home. No, I trim my toenails. But anyway, so Hawk, what he finds reaching inside the door is he finds some pieces of paper, some scraps of paper, and for the eagle-eyed viewer, we kind of know what they are, but confirmed later in the next episode. And so, oh God, ugh. Yeah, just a really punchable character. But we come to the end of this episode, and as with so many of these, it ends at the Roadhouse with a musical number. And I'm going to have to look. Sharon Van Etten, who I don't know. There she is. I just put this in because, it's a millennial thing, and you seem to like them, particularly Sandy.
Yeah. Anyway. Sharon Van Etten is from New Jersey. That's a Brooklynite band.
Oh. Yeah. So that thus ends episode 6 of Twin Peaks. Don't die.
Don't die.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Which is quite. Yeah. I'm still at a loss what it's referring to.
That's what Mike tells him.
We're slogging slowly towards my favorite episode of television ever.
Wait, is that line spoken in the episode? I should have
either this episode or the one previous, but Mike appears to him and tells Dougie explicitly, do not die.
Yeah. Interesting. See, thank you for bringing that up, because I was trying to. I don't think that don't think it happens in this episode, although I think
it's the episode prior.
Right, because he does. Because remember, Dougie does.
Mike makes a short appearance on his first day.
Yeah.
Out of the electrical socket. Don't die.
Yeah. And of course, as we saw with Ike, that one target down and the other target is of course Dougie. So and we're already aware that there are other people trying to kill Dougie. I mean, when he first left the house with Jade, he just barely, missed getting sniped, and then as someone tried to blow up his vehicle. So obviously, there are various people trying to get rid of Dougie Jones, all at we assume the behest of Mr. C. So, well, do we have any final words about this episode? Curious.
It's like I said, slogging towards my favorite television episode ever. Getting there.
Wonder what that will be. I wonder.
I'm curious.
12. It's 12.
Oh, okay.
Oh, 12. Okay. A lot of people, of course, like episode 8, which is called God of Light, and I will relish talking about that one because for various reasons, and also, of course, we meet the frog moth, which I think is the key to everything. Maybe. No, really, but come on, frog moth.
Well, I'm going to keep watching these in the day before.
Yeah. No,
it's been enjoyable.
Yeah, I've been refreshing my memory because, even though I just recently watched it twice, but I think, as you, like you, Prude, it's good to, because I just watched this one.
Well, I mean, Sandy wasn't here, but as I told the audience the other week, when I first watched this, it was not when it came out on television. It was when it came out on DVD. So I have the like collector's edition box set for the return, which I'm really glad to have. And I'm all sorts of, I like the paraphernalia and things like that. But at the end of the day, right, like I watched it more or less in one sitting over a weekend back to back, and with no thought or care for whether or not I should do that at all. So, lesson learned. And so, I mean, for me, like looking back, it was like, oh man, I have a lot of opinions about the show that I really have reversed since rewatching it in order. So, I mean, at least I've got that going, which is nice. But yeah, it's been good to refresh.
Indeed. Well, any closing thoughts, Mr. Sandbatch?
No, that's it.
Okay, well, listen.
I'm in low energy vibrational state lately.
Yeah, aren't we all? Well, anyway, good cheer to you, gentlemen, and keeping my fingers crossed that we will, all three of us, be here for maybe next week's episode. I don't know. Next week is a holiday, so maybe at some point in the week we can squeeze something in. But stay tuned, for the next one. It shall come soon enough. And again, I should reiterate, at the risk of embarrassment, but of course, if you would like to support Mr. Dee and the channel and the show and all these activities, then you should visit buymeacoffee.com/John Dee, and that's IOHNDEE, and you'll be very happy that you did so. But again, thank you, gentlemen. And of course, you should certainly visit my friend's work. A Prudentialist, of course, has a YouTube channel in which he does videos, including some recent things. I saw that you had another show with Dimes.
Yeah, or Do You Even Read is the show that he and I do, and I have been dragged in because he likes to. We like to bounce back and forth, where it's like a book that we find really interesting versus atrocious left-wing garbage that no one wants to read, but it might be a good idea to read. And so unfortunately I'm stuck reviewing and going over Walter Rodney's How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, and spoiler alert, Rodney's wrong, but I'm just gonna hate my co-host for the entirety of that discussion. That's this Monday.
Well, yeah, certainly tune in for that, and obviously you can also follow Mr. Prudentialist on whatever that social media thing is that Elon Musk owns. And Sandy, do you have anything going on?
So we've got L&D. I'm trying to get at least one of these two books out before the end of the year. Library of Mass Destruction is the show that I do with Dimes' doppelganger, or Capitalismo is. I can't tell them apart sometimes.
The good Dimes.
We have a remarkably similar setup. And I'm sure most of you all are familiar with it because we do it every week. We're between books right now, and so we're picking a new book. I got an episode coming out with Pete Canones. And really what I've been doing a lot of, oh, good Lord. Yeah. I had some work published in Spectre Poets a couple of days ago that was remarkably well received. I think some of the best that I've written, but I've been doing a lot of Substack writing. So when it's really interesting when you start doing writing, your ability to do other things, it takes a serious hit because it's a considerably more global process than streaming or something like that. But ultimately, I think maybe more rewarding. Been working on the writing and the tool development stuff mostly lately, and it's also why I'm so tired because it takes more energy.
Well, certainly, check out both of these fine gentlemen's work. And again, thank you for watching. We appreciate it, and I really enjoy having this experience. We're speeding towards the 50% mark. Well, sort of. It's episode 9, I suppose, would be the halfway point. But thank you, gentlemen, for being here with me during this slog, and thank you everyone for watching. And we will see you next time. Goodbye.